And now may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. This morning we're going to start with some words from that great theologian, George Carlin. I say that facetiously, of course. George Carlin was a comedian, and he quite often talked about his disdain for faith and for organized religion and anything to do with those things. But at the same time, George Carlin was a very funny man. And bits was a very interesting description on the difference between baseball and football.
Baseball is a 19th century pastoral game. Football is a 20th century technological struggle. Baseball is played on a diamond, in a park, the baseball park. Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium, sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium.
Now, I'm not going to go into great detail here because that performance is on YouTube, and if you're interested in it, you can go look at it. But I will make a couple of points. Carlin's idea was that the two are dramatically different. Football is violent and in many ways a metaphor for war. It's played on a gridiron and run by field generals, and the goal is to dominate and physically defeat your opponent. Baseball, on the other hand, is pastoral. It's played in a park. And while the objective of football is for the field general to marshal his forces and march down the gridiron, physically defeating and obliterating his opponents on the way until he finally crosses the goal line and scores a touchdown. The goal of baseball is to go home. That's what you're trying to do in baseball. You're trying to go home, to be safe. We're going to be safe at home, he says. And in some ways, as we think about this, that's the goal of all of us. We're all looking for home, and especially for the safety of home. There is something about the very notion of home that attracts us. And in some cases, people spend their entire lives trying to get home. Nostalgia is a very powerful thing. And as people get older, they can develop very strong attachments to home. And home, the way it was, the home that they grew up in, and the feelings there of safety and love. It's not just people. Animals have a very strong sense of home. Our pets. I think we've all heard stories of and admired those animals that somehow get lost and wander off for months and in some cases years, and then all of a sudden they find their way home. Some of them having crossed miles and miles and miles in order to get back to the safety of home. There is something about home, its safety, its acceptance, its love, and its relationship that we're all looking for. We're all seeking in one form or fashion. The problem is finding that can be very, very difficult. Just as nostalgia is a powerful force in our lives, memories can fade over time. And even when they don't, We can return home to find it much different than what we expected, much different than the way we left it. We can go back to what we think of as home, and it doesn't look or feel like home at all, and indeed may not even be there still. And what about those people like myself who moved around a lot? I went to 3 different high schools. I have no home to go back to. There is no place on this earth that I can go back to where the people will remember and recognize me. When you move a lot and you jump around a lot, there is no such thing as home. And finally, there are some people for whom the memories of home are not memories of love and acceptance and safety, but they're bad memories. These are people who want nothing to do with the home of their childhood, because instead of it being a place of love and relationship, to them it was a place of neglect and anger and even abuse. The problem in all this, in this struggle to find home, of course, is sin. That's what destroys our earthly homes. That's what leads to the abuse and neglect. That's what takes away the memories of once what was. It was sin that destroyed the original home, our original home, that was perfect in every way, that had everything you would want in a home: love and acceptance and safety and relationship. That first home was the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve walked in a perfect relationship with God, who had all the love and acceptance and safety they could ever want. And sin, of course, destroyed it. And they were told to leave and banished from the perfect home. And in a sense, sin has infected every home we've ever tried to create since then. We have sought that safety and acceptance and love and that need for belonging and relationship. We have sought it oftentimes in dangerous places and with bad people, all because we want to feel safe at home. It has been twisted and warped by sin, often to our grief and sorrow. The good news, of course, in all this is that God keeps calling us back. Even though we are far from home, even though we have been removed from home by sin, God has not given up on us. And He keeps calling us back. We see that in both our readings this morning. From the Old Testament in Jeremiah, God is talking about the flock that has been scattered and driven away, that has been neglected and ignored by the bad shepherds. And God tells them, I will gather the remnant and bring them back into the fold. In other words, I will bring them home to me through Christ, through the Good Shepherd. In our New Testament reading from Ephesians chapter 2, I would specifically call your attention to verses 12 and 13. In verse 12, Paul talks about the aliens and strangers. What are aliens and strangers? What is an alien? It's someone without a home. It's someone who has left looking for a new home. A stranger is someone without a home. And we're told that these alien and strangers were without hope. They were without hope of finding a real, true home. But then again, look at verse 13, our key verse this morning. But now in Christ Jesus, Paul writes, you who were once far off have been brought near by his blood. You who were once aliens, you who were once strangers, you who were once wanderers, wandering sheep, out, unprotected, homeless, no place to go, have now been brought back into your true home, into your true sheepfold by the Good Shepherd himself, by the blood of Christ. Our real home is in him. No matter what we seek in this world, no matter what we try to make home in this world, our true home is in him. I am hoping that as faithful Christians, you feel uneasy in this world. You look around this world and see the brokenness and see the sinfulness, oftentimes in our own homes, and you understand that this is not the way it's supposed to be. There's an uneasiness. There's a disquiet as you look at the sin and brokenness and ugliness of this world that so many call home. It's not supposed to be this way. It was not created to be this way. Our true home, the only place that will give us love and safety and peace and acceptance and relationship, is in Christ Jesus. Nothing else, no home, no place in this world will ever satisfy as that can. Only that can give us what we truly want, because it is our true home in Christ. But there are requirements. It comes at a price. The price that Jesus paid on the cross. But living in any home, even an earthly home, comes with responsibilities. What are our responsibilities? If God has called us into this new home, if he has called us back to him, to find a home in him through Jesus, to give us love and safety and acceptance and security and relationship, what are our responsibilities related to that? The first responsibility, the most important responsibility, is responding to that invitation in faith. That's the starting point. It is in many ways the key that unlocks the front door to God's house, to his home, and to our home. Without it, you can't get in. God is offering, holding out to us, an eternal home where there is no pain and suffering, where there is no sorrow, where we can live in perfect love and acceptance and safety and security. And our first step is to receive the offer in faith. It is the key that unlocks the front door to God's home, and without it, we simply cannot get in. But as you know, there's a difference between getting in a home and living in a home. And living in a home requires rights and responsibilities. And chief among them, to live in God's home, is obedience. Any house has rules. Any house you live in has rules. The house you grew up in, the house you have now. Make your bed. Wash the dishes. Put them away. Wipe your feet. Those are the rules of the house, and if you do not obey them, you cannot continue to live in the home. You will be asked to leave. And it's the same way with God's home. Faith is the key that opens the door. But staying in the home and living in it requires obedience to God's rules. What are God's rules? You know them well. You know them quite well. They're all over the Bible. Chiefly, we are called to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. We're called to love our enemies. We're called to serve, not to be served. We are a house of service towards God and towards others, not a house where we expect to be served and eat breakfast in bed every day. We're called to pick up our cross and carry Jesus. That's part of our responsibility of living in the home. All of these obligations are what God has called us to do in order to live in His perfect home. And if we are unwilling to do that, if we simply cannot do that, we will be asked to leave. Just as Adam and Eve were. Just as the Israelites of the Old Testament were asked to leave their home and go into captivity. We are called, in order to live in this house, to come in faith, to live in obedience, and especially to love and respect the owner of the house, to love and respect God our Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. That's what Jesus said. What are the two greatest commandments? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. Why would you want to live in a home where you don't respect the homeowner? You want to live in a place where you love and respect the one who is letting you live there. And if you don't, the homeowner has every right to ask you to leave. You remember the story in Matthew 21, the parable Jesus told of the vineyard and the tenants and the people working the vineyard who were corrupt and evil and sought only personal gain. So the owner sent some people to warn them and to collect the money. They abused them. Sent more, they abused them as well. Finally, the owner of the vineyard sends his son, thinking, well, this is my son, surely they'll listen to him. They treated him worse than the others and killed him, figuring if we kill him, we will become the heirs and get everything that's coming. Jesus asked his disciples, what do you think will happen to those tenants? Those wretches will come to a wretched end. And they will. And the first thing they'll be asked to do is to leave the house, never to return. God has provided for us a perfect, forever home in Him through His Son, Jesus Christ. But living in that home requires certain responsibilities on our part, or we will be asked to leave. Well, we started talking about George Carlin. We might as well finish talking about him as well. And go back to that discussion of football versus baseball. And in his mind, how violent football is. And all the mistakes, even the mistakes that you make have violent names. Personal fouls, unsportsmanlike conduct, unnecessary roughness. In baseball, he said, they're errors, simple mistakes. And he also said that they use the word sacrifice. In football, it's different. But in baseball, you make a sacrifice. You give yourself up for your teammate. In the same way, our faith depends on a sacrifice. The sacrifice that Jesus has made for us. The sacrifice of his body and his blood on the cross. And it was because of that sacrifice, and only because of that sacrifice, that we are reconciled to God. That we who were once aliens and strangers, far from God, far from his kingdom, far from home, have now been brought back into his sheepfold. We have now been brought back into his presence. And we have now been brought back into the very home of God, where we will find that perfect love and safety and peace and security and relationship that we so desperately seek in this world and cannot find. Amen.